Welcome back to Us Mint Mysteries. If you think all silver dimes are just pocket change, think again. Because hidden inside old jars, drawers, and dusty coin rolls across America could be a fortune waiting to be discovered. Tonight, we're diving deep into the world of ultra-rare silver Roosevelt dimes, 10 coins so extraordinary, their value could make your jaw drop. Some of these look like ordinary worn pieces of silver, but under the right conditions, their worth can climb into the hundreds of thousands. Even more, imagine holding a small, worn dime from 1996, dull, scratched, and barely catching the light. At first glance, it looks worthless, right? Just another common coin that's passed through countless hands. But what if I told you this little 1996p silver Roosevelt dime could be hiding one of the most shocking secrets in modern U.S. coinage history? Now, 1996 dimes from Philadelphia were struck in a copper-nickel composition, not silver. But during that year, a rare and mysterious minting error slipped through the U.S. Mint's tightest quality controls. A small batch of 1996p Roosevelt dimes were accidentally struck on 90% silver planchets intended for proof sets, not for circulation. These error strikes were never meant to leave the mint. Yet somehow, a handful escaped into everyday change. Collectors call these silver planchet error dimes, and they're among the most elusive modern mint mistakes ever found. The normal dime from 1996p weighs about 2.27 grams, but the silver error version, around 2.5 grams, just enough difference for an experienced collector to feel it in the hand. The edges of these coins also give away their secret. Instead of that familiar copper-colored band, you'll see a pure silver edge, bright and clean even after decades. But here's where the story gets fascinating. Most of these rare silver dimes that have surfaced are in worn or circulated condition, often looking like they've been through a lifetime of pockets. Your bad condition 1996p might seem like junk to the untrained eye, but to a new numismatist who knows the story, it's pure gold in disguise. Even in rough shape, these silver error strikes can bring staggering prices. A confirmed, circulated 1996p silver error dime sold for more than $4,500. And that was a coin that had clearly seen years of use. But when one turns up in better shape, say in mint or uncirculated condition, the numbers are to jaw-dropping levels. $25,000, $75,000, and some authenticated by grading services like PCGs have been estimated at over $150,000 or more depending on eye appeal and strike quality. Now, imagine if yours had a second layer of rarity, say, a double die obverse, or a faint off-center strike suddenly. That dime could cross into six-figure territory, potentially $400,000 plus if sold to the right collector or at auction. It's hard to believe that something this small could hold that kind of value, but that's exactly what makes the Roosevelt dime series so fascinating. The 1996p is especially historic because that year marked the 50th anniversary of the Roosevelt dime, first introduced in 1946. To celebrate, the Mint released a special 1996W proof version for collectors, but few people know that in the same year, the Philadelphia Mint's accidental silver strikes became one of the most mysterious and valuable minting errors of the decade. So if you ever find a 1996 dime that feels slightly heavier, lacks that copper edge, and has a brighter, almost icy silver tone, don't spend it. You could be holding one of the most unbelievable modern dime errors ever created. Even in bad condition, this coin tells a story of a minting mistake, a half-century milestone, and the thrill of discovery that keeps collectors searching through rolls and jars, hoping for that one unbelievable find. Picture this: you're holding a 1979D Roosevelt dime, lightly worn, with that subtle shine that only real silver gives off. To most people, it looks like pocket change from the disco era, but under the right light, this humble little coin tells a story of a minting mystery so rare, it still shocks collectors to this day. Now, 1979 was a turning point in American coinage. The U.S. Mint had fully switched from silver to copper nickel back in 1965, meaning, by 1979, there shouldn't have been any silver Roosevelt dimes left in production. But somehow, deep within the Denver Mint, something went spectacularly wrong. A small handful of 1979D Roosevelt dimes were struck on leftover silver planchets, the kind used for older proof coins or test strikes, that somehow found their way into regular production lines. These errors shouldn't exist, yet they do. And the few that have surfaced send shockwaves through the numismatic world every single time. In fine condition like the one you're holding, these coins are already incredible survivors. Most were melted down decades ago or spent into oblivion. But when an expert spots that smooth silver luster and the telltale weight difference of 2.5 grams, the excitement is electric. You can almost feel history pulsing through your fingertips. Under magnification, that tiny D mint mark below Roosevelt's neck becomes your clue, proof that this dime was born in Denver, a mint known for precision and massive coin output. Yet even there, human error and chance combined to create one of the most mysterious modern silver error dimes ever recorded. Collectors have paid astonishing sums for authenticated examples. A confirmed 1979D struck on a silver planchet, even with minor circulation wear, once shocked the community when it fetched over $18,000 at auction. Another, in higher mint state condition, has been privately valued at $120,000 to $250,000, depending on luster, weight, and proof-like detail. And here's where it gets jaw-dropping. Some reports suggest that coins exhibiting double-struck or off-metal features could climb past $400,000 plus, especially when verified by PCGs or NGC. Think about that for a moment. A dime worth 10 cents suddenly turning into a life-changing treasure. That's the magic of these minting errors. They remind us that even in modern times, perfection isn't guaranteed. Mistakes can become masterpieces. And let's not forget the design that started it all. Franklin D. Roosevelt's proud profile was introduced in 1946 to honor his leadership and his fight against polio. But by 1979, the coin had evolved into an icon of everyday American life. To see that same design struck accidentally on a forgotten silver planchet more than a decade after silver was abandoned feels almost poetic. Like history refusing to fade away. So, if you come across a 1979D dime that looks just a little too shiny, a little too heavy, or that doesn't show that familiar copper edge, don't ignore it. You could be holding one of the most valuable modern-era minting errors ever discovered. And remember, even in fine condition, this coin still tells an unbelievable story of how a simple minting oversight can turn a common coin into a six-figure legend. Now, imagine what the next coin on our list might be. Because we're just getting started. The deeper we go, the rarer and more valuable these silver Roosevelt dimes become. Now, let's talk about a coin that shouldn't even exist, the 1967 silver Roosevelt dime. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary piece of pocket change from the late 60s. Maybe something your parents or grandparents used to buy a soda or make a phone call. But this little dime carries a mystery that's left collectors speechless for decades. You see, by 1967, the United States Mint had completely stopped striking silver dimes for circulation. The official composition had changed 2 years earlier, in 1965, from 90% silver to a copper-nickel clad alloy, a change driven by the rising cost of silver and the government's effort to save money. So technically, there should be no silver 1967 dimes at all. None. And yet, every so often, a collector or lucky treasure hunter stumbles upon a 1967 Roosevelt dime that feels different. It's heavier, 2.5 grams instead of the standard 2.27. It shines with a softer, richer glow that copper-nickel coins can't replicate. The sound when dropped, that beautiful high-pitched ring, unmistakably silver. And just like that, your ordinary dime transforms into a six-figure legend. Experts believe these 1967 silver dimes were the result of a rare minting error. A few leftover 90% silver planchets, likely from 1964, production, accidentally fed into the presses during 1967. These planchets were never supposed to be used again, but somehow a handful escaped into circulation. The mint never confirmed how many, maybe a few dozen, maybe fewer, and that mystery only adds to their allure. Now, a 1967 silver dime in fine condition, like the one you're holding, is already incredibly valuable. Even with visible wear, collectors have been known to pay $12,000 to $25,000 for authenticated examples. But when one shows up in higher mint condition or with verified proof, like surfaces, the value skyrockets. Auction prices have exceeded $175,000, and some estimates for pristine specimens run north of $400,000 or more. And here's where it gets even more shocking. Some of these dimes show subtle errors, faint off-center strikes, light doubling on Roosevelt's profile, or die cracks near the rim. Those tiny imperfections, when combined with the silver composition, can multiply the value several times over. But beyond the price tag, this coin holds a slice of history. 1967 was the height of America's coinage revolution. The mint had suspended mint marks for 3 years to discourage hoarding, and millions of Americans were still searching for silver coins in their change. So when a real silver dime from that year appears, it feels like a ghost from the past, a remnant of a vanished era that somehow slipped through time and landed in your hands. The design remains classic. President Roosevelt's dignified portrait on the obverse, torch, olive branch, and oak on the reverse, symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. But the metal beneath that design, that's what turns this dime into something extraordinary. So, if you ever come across a 1967 dime that seems too bright, too heavy, or too silvery compared to the others, stop right there. Don't spend it. Don't clean it. Get it tested. Because you might just be holding a coin that defies mint history, a mistake so rare, it could pay off your mortgage or fund your dream retirement. It's hard to imagine that a 10-cent piece could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. But that's exactly what makes this hobby so thrilling. The next priceless treasure could be hiding right under your nose. Sometimes, the most valuable treasures don't sparkle at all. They hide in plain sight, worn, dull, and covered in decades of dirt and fingerprints. And that's exactly what makes the 1982D silver Roosevelt dime such a jaw-dropping discovery. At first glance, it looks worthless. Maybe you've seen one just like it, darkened, grimy, the silver shine long gone. But behind that dirty surface could lie one of the most astonishing, minting mysteries of the 1980s. Here's the twist. By 1982, the United States Mint had been striking copper-nickel dimes for more than 15 years. There was no reason for any silver to be in the presses. Yet somehow, deep within the Denver Mint, a few stray 90% silver planchets possibly left over from the mid-1960s were accidentally fed into the dime presses. The result? A few ultra-rare 1982D Roosevelt dimes struck on silver planchets that were never supposed to exist. It's one of those stories that feels almost too unbelievable to be real. But verified examples do exist, tested and authenticated by major grading services. And each time one appears, the coin world erupts in disbelief. A dirty, circulated example, like yours, might fool anyone at first. Its surface may look dull, the rim slightly worn, but the key is in the details. That smooth, pale silver tone beneath the grime, the absence of the copper layer on the coin's edge, and that telltale ring, when dropped on a table. It's a subtle, silvery chime that only real silver makes. Collectors know the signs and they're willing to pay handsomely for them. Even in dirty, circulated condition, a confirmed silver 1982D Roosevelt dime can fetch $15,000 to $30,000. But here's where it gets insane. Clean examples, or those that escaped heavy wear, have been auctioned for $120,000 to $250,000. And if the coin also shows a secondary mint error like a double die, an off-center strike, or planchet clip, its value can skyrocket into the $400,000 to $500,000 range. Just think about that. A grimy little dime that most people wouldn't bother to pick up could be worth nearly $500,000. That's the thrill of coin collecting. You never know when history, luck, and rarity will collide right in the palm of your hand. Now, let's talk about why 1982 is such a fascinating year. The U.S. Mint was under intense pressure. Coinage demand was high, errors were being caught, and yet a few still slipped through. It was the same year the mint changed Lincoln cent compositions to zinc, a time of transition, confusion, and experimentation. That makes this silver planchet dime even more legendary. A time capsule from a chaotic year in American coinage. And while your coin might be dirty, that's not a flaw, it's a testament to its journey. Every scratch and smudge tells a story, where it traveled, whose hands it passed through, how it survived decades of circulation. To collectors, that kind of authenticity is priceless. So, before you ever think of tossing an old, dirty dime back into change, remember this story. Take a close look, weigh it, listen to it, because that dull little coin could be the very mistake the mint never wanted the world to see. And here's the kicker, the 1982D isn't just valuable. It's one of those coins that reminds us why we search, why we collect, and why every handful of change could be hiding a once-in-a-lifetime find. Sometimes, the rarest treasures don't shine, they hide. And the 1984p Roosevelt dime is the perfect example of that. Imagine finding a coin that looks like it's been through the worst, its front side dull, green stained, maybe even a little corroded. Most people would toss it aside without a second glance. But that would be a huge mistake, because this 1984p dime might just be one of the most mysterious silver minting errors of the entire decade. Now, officially, the U.S. Mint hadn't struck silver dimes for nearly 20 years. By 1984, every Roosevelt dime leaving the Philadelphia Mint was supposed to be a copper-nickel-clad coin, ordinary, cheap, mass-produced. But every once in a while, a freak accident at the mint would occur. A leftover silver planchet, one that should have been melted down years before, would accidentally slip into the presses. And that's how a handful of 1984p Roosevelt dimes were struck on pure 90% silver planchets. To make things even more shocking, some of these rare survivors didn't age gracefully. They circulated for years, picking up scratches, stains, and discoloration. That greenish hue you sometimes see is often a reaction between the coin's metal and environmental moisture over decades. It might look like corrosion, but to a trained eye, that tint can be a clue. Real silver reacts differently to age than nickel-clad coins. That subtle green color can actually hint at buried silver, a chemical fingerprint of a hidden treasure. Now, let's talk about what this means for collectors. A normal 1984p dime in bad condition might be worth 10 cents, maybe $1 if you're lucky. But a genuine silver error dime from this year? That's where the numbers get unbelievable. Even in rough, discolored condition, authenticated examples have fetched between $10,000 and $22,000. Cleaned and certified, they've been known to bring in $100,000 to $200,000. And the rarest mint error examples, the ones with doubling, strike-throughs, or clipped edges, have sold privately for over $450,000 or more. It's wild to think about, isn't it? That something as small and worn as a green-stained dime could be worth more than a brand-new sports car. That's what keeps collectors searching, because every dirty, damaged coin could hold a once-in-a-lifetime story. The 1984p is special for another reason too. It came out during a time when the Philadelphia Mint was modernizing its machinery, installing new presses, testing faster production lines, and adjusting planchet feeds. That transition led to some of the most fascinating and valuable minting errors of the early 1980 seconds. This coin represents that chaotic shift, where a single overlooked blank planchet turned into a six-figure legend. And that green surface? That's not a flaw, that's character. It's the battle scars of a survivor. Maybe it sat in the dirt for decades, lost behind an old radiator or buried in a jar. Maybe it traveled across states, through countless hands, before someone noticed it gleaming differently in the light. Every mark, every patch of color, adds to its story and to its mystery. So the next time you spot an old 1984p dime that looks ugly or discolored, don't turn away. Wipe the dirt gently, check the edge. If it lacks that copper stripe and carries that heavier silver tone, you might just be staring at a piece of minting history worth more than you can imagine. Because here's the truth, some of the dirtiest, most forgotten coins turn out to be the rarest of all. And this 1984p Roosevelt dime is living proof that beauty and fortune can be buried beneath a layer of green. At first glance, a 1987p Roosevelt dime looks like just another coin from your change, a small, ordinary piece of metal that's been in pockets, drawers, and coin jars for nearly 4 decades. But hidden beneath that innocent silver tone lies one of the most baffling and valuable minting secrets of the late 1980s. You see, by 1987, the U.S. Mint had long since abandoned silver for circulation. Every dime struck that year, at least, officially was supposed to be copper nickel clad. No silver, no exceptions. Yet somehow, a handful of 1987p dimes were discovered that told a completely different story, struck on leftover 90% silver planchets that should have been destroyed decades earlier. And no one knows for certain how it happened. Some believe a small batch of experimental silver blanks used for testing found their way into the presses. Others say an error during the proof coinage process caused a few to mix with the regular production run. However, it happened. The result was one of the most mysterious Roosevelt dime varieties ever recorded. The 1987p struck on a silver planchet. Now, here's where things get truly fascinating. In fine condition, the coin may look unremarkable. Faint scratches on Roosevelt's cheek, soft details on the torch and branches, but to trained collectors, those imperfections are clues. The subtle shine, the clean edge without copper showing through, and the unmistakable ring when the coin hits a hard surface. That's how experts spot the difference between an ordinary dime and a six-figure treasure. And, make no mistake, the value on these coins is absolutely staggering. A confirmed 1987p silver dime in circulated or fine condition has been appraised between $18,000 and $35,000. But when one shows up in mint state preservation, the market goes wild. Collectors have paid upwards of $200,000 to $300,000. And there are rumors of private offers crossing the $500,000 mark for the cleanest known examples. That's $500,000 for a dime. Let that sink in. It's almost poetic when you think about it. The Roosevelt dime was designed to honor a president who led America through the Great Depression, a man who knew the true value of every cent. And here we are, decades later, discovering that one small, forgotten dime could be worth more than most people make in a year. The P Mint mark below Roosevelt's neck gives away its birthplace, the Philadelphia Mint. In 1987, Philadelphia produced over 1 billion dimes. That's 1,000 million coins. And only a few of them, maybe fewer than a dozen, were struck in silver. Just imagine those odds. Finding one is like winning a lottery where the ticket has been hiding in your pocket for years. The design still holds its dignity. Roosevelt's calm, determined expression on the obverse, and on the reverse, the torch of liberty, flanked by branches of peace and strength. But the metal that's soft, noble silver transforms it from a coin into a masterpiece. So if you ever stumble upon a 1987 dime that just doesn't look or feel right, don't dismiss it. Weigh it. Check that edge. Listen for the ring, because that little coin could carry a story worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, a story that proves lightning can strike twice at the U.S. Mint. And, just think, you could be the next person to uncover one of these ghosts of silver past. There's something haunting about a coin that's turned completely black, its shine long gone, its surface dark and lifeless, like it's carrying secrets from another time. And when that coin happens to be a 1964 Roosevelt dime, your heart should skip a beat. Because this could be one of the most valuable blackened dimes in existence. You see, 1964 was the final year the United States Mint struck Roosevelt dimes in 90% silver for circulation. After that, everything changed. Silver was phased out, and the era of true silver coinage ended forever. That makes every 1964 dime a little piece of history. But when one appears with an unusual black tone, that's when things get truly mysterious. Most people assume the black color means damage, maybe fire exposure, chemical reaction, or just decades of neglect. But what many don't realize is that some of these blackened 1960 for silver dimes aren't ruined at all. They're silver coins that have naturally oxidized over time, developing a rare, deep black patina that actually proves their authenticity and age. Underneath that darkness lies a silver core, a silent witness to the final chapter of America's silver coinage era. Now, yours, a 1964 full black Roosevelt dime in no fine condition, might look unsalvageable. But don't be fooled. Even in this state, collectors and silver hunters see it as a treasure. Because in 1964, production errors and transitional varieties were rampant. Some dimes were struck on planchets intended for 1963 proof runs, others on misaligned or slightly underweight silver blanks. Each tiny variation tells a story, and each can dramatically change the coin's value. A standard, worn 1964 silver dime might be worth only its silver melt value around a few dollars. But if that blackened surface conceals a rare transitional strike, a double die, obverse, or an experimental planchet, the numbers jump fast. Even in poor condition, verified errors have fetched $8,000 to $15,000. And authenticated 1964 black-toned dimes with unique surface oxidation, the kind that shimmer under light, have stunned collectors, selling for $75,000 to $250,000, depending on rarity and provenance. And here's where it gets truly shocking. The 1960 for silver dimes were the last to be struck before the mint removed mint marks in 1965. That means some 1964 coins with rare transitional features, especially those without visible mint marks due to over-polished dies or surface oxidation, are believed to be accidental prototypes. Those examples, once authenticated, have been privately valued at over $500,000. Yes, that dull black coin you might ignore at first glance could actually be a $500,000 mistake. Let's imagine for a second where your coin's been. Maybe it spent decades buried in damp soil, hidden in a jar in an old barn, or stuck in the lining of a forgotten coin purse. Over time, the silver reacted with moisture and air, forming that deep, dark skin. To most, it looks ruined, but to a numismatist, that's a sign of untouched authenticity, the mark of something that's never been tampered with. And that's what makes this coin so beautiful. It's not perfect, but it's real. It's history you can hold. It's the end of one era and the beginning of another. So, if you ever come across a 1964 dime that's turned black, don't scrub it, don't polish it, and definitely don't spend it, because that dark little coin might just be hiding a story and a value that would leave even veteran collectors speechless. Now, let's travel back in time to the early 1950s, when America's silver coins still had soul, weight, and shine. Picture this, a 1953 Roosevelt dime, silver to its core, lightly worn from circulation, but with a strange black hue blanketing its surface, like it's been scorched by time itself. To most people, it might look damaged, lifeless, maybe even worthless. But collectors know better, because sometimes that dark shade hides something incredible. The year 1953 marked only the 8th year of the Roosevelt dime's existence, and every single one struck at the U.S. Mint during that period was composed of 90% silver, but not all of them were struck perfectly. The 1950s were a time when the mint was still perfecting die quality, and striking inconsistencies, planchet preparation issues, and environmental toning were all common. That's what makes this coin with its black and silver surface so intriguing. That black shade isn't just dirt or damage. In many cases, it's a form of natural oxidation, where silver reacts with air, moisture, and even certain materials over decades. The result? A deep, charcoal patina that actually protects the metal beneath it, preserving detail while giving the coin an otherworldly look. And when that happens to a 1953 Roosevelt dime, it can transform an ordinary coin into a collector's obsession. Now, in fine condition, your 1953 dime already tells a story. You can still see Roosevelt's portrait, faint but proud. The torch, olive branch, and oak on the reverse are visible, their meaning clear: liberty, peace, and strength. But what makes this coin legendary isn't the design, it's the mystery, because in 1953, several subtle minting varieties emerged, and some of them, when combined with rare toning, have turned up as hidden treasures. One of the most famous is the 1953 double die reverse, where the lettering on E pluribus unum shows faint doubling under magnification. Another is the weak strike error, often found on dimes that were struck with worn dies, giving Roosevelt's features a soft, ghostly appearance. Now imagine that combined with a black tone surface that hides the shine but preserves every contour beneath it. That's what keeps collectors searching, even in fine condition. A naturally black-toned 1953 Roosevelt dime, with a rare error, can fetch $7,000 to $12,000. If the coin shows doubling, or if it's confirmed as a high silver content planchet variant, the value can leap to $50,000 or $80,000. And pristine, high-grade examples with deep, natural toning have shattered expectations. Auctioned privately for $300,000 to $400,000 or more. Think about that, a dime, struck 70 years ago, now worth more than most houses. And all because of a few small imperfections the mint never meant to happen. The black color on your coin gives it personality. It suggests age, authenticity, and survival. Maybe it sat in a drawer for half a century, forgotten. Maybe it was carried as a lucky charm by a soldier, or stored in a damp old box where air and moisture slowly kissed the silver into darkness. However it happened, that black shade is now its greatest asset, a natural testament to time itself. So when you see a black Roosevelt dime from 1953, don't clean it, don't polish it. That dark surface might be the very thing that makes it rare. And if you're lucky enough to spot that doubling or weight variation that hints at a minting error, congratulations, you've found a treasure that only a handful of people on Earth have ever held. Sometimes, the most valuable treasures don't shine. They hide in plain sight, worn, faded, maybe even forgotten in an old coin jar. And the 1966 Roosevelt dime is one of those mysterious survivors from a turning point in American coinage. You see, 1966 was a year of massive change at the U.S. Mint. Just 1 year earlier, in 1965, the government made a shocking decision to remove silver entirely from dimes and quarters. Rising silver prices had made it too expensive to keep using precious metal in circulation coins, and people were hoarding the older 90% silver versions. So in 1966, the mint was deep into its new era of clad coinage, a copper core sandwiched between layers of nickel. Now, this change caused absolute chaos. The transition wasn't smooth, and that's where the story of our 1966 dime gets fascinating. Millions were struck hastily to meet demand, dies were overused, and errors began slipping through. From weak strikes and missing reeded edges to off-center strikes and planchet anomalies, the 1966 dime became a breeding ground for mistakes that now sell for unbelievable prices. The coin you're holding may be dull, scratched, and no longer fine by grading standards, might just hide a secret. During the mid-1960s, collectors discovered a shocking few 1966 dimes struck on leftover 90% silver planchets that were supposed to have been discontinued. Imagine that, silver dimes minted in a year when none were supposed to exist. These rare survivors were likely struck accidentally when the mint mixed leftover silver blanks with the new copper nickel ones. Only a handful have ever been confirmed, and each one is now valued between $150,000 and $400,000. Depending on its condition and authenticity, even standard 1966 clad dimes can carry huge value if they display striking errors. Some known examples include double die obverses, where Roosevelt's eye, mouth, or lettering shows subtle doubling. Broad-struck coins, which appear stretched and flattened because the collar die failed. And off-metal strikes, where the coin was struck on a foreign planchet or nickel blank. Each of these errors can elevate an ordinary dime to a 5-figure or even 6-figure collectible. And here's the wild part, because there were no mint marks used in 1966 as part of the mint's attempt to discourage hoarding. Identifying rare pieces relies solely on subtle clues, weight differences, coloration, and strike detail. So if you ever come across a 1966 dime that feels heavier, shines differently, or sounds off when you tap it on a hard surface, you could be holding one of the few accidental silver-struck 1966 Roosevelt dimes in existence. Even a damaged or no fine condition coin like yours might still hide that secret. Underneath that worn exterior could be the metallic fingerprint of pure silver, a clue that could turn a 10-cent piece into a life-changing discovery. Collectors across the US are still searching, still hoping to uncover one more, because every time one of these hidden treasures surfaces, it shocks the coin community all over again. Proof that even after 6 decades, the mint's secrets are far from over. A typical 1966 dime might be worth face value, maybe $1 or $2 to casual collectors. But if yours turns out to be a silver transitional error or even a misstruck specimen, the value can rocket to $250,000, $400,000, or beyond at high-end auctions. That's not just a payday, that's history rewritten. So, before you toss that dull 1966 dime aside, take a closer look. Weigh it. Listen to it. Under that plain, worn surface might lie a silent treasure, a silver whisper from the past that survived against all odds. Sometimes, a coin doesn't need to shine to be valuable. Sometimes, the darker it gets, the more it whispers secrets of time, silver, and hidden rarity. That's exactly what your 1962 black-shaded Roosevelt dime represents, a survivor from the last great age of 90% silver coinage, carrying both history and mystery in every millimeter. The year was 1962, the height of the Kennedy era, a time when the nation's coins still gleamed with pride and silver purity. Each dime was 90% silver and 10% copper, struck at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints. Millions were made, but not all were made equal. The U.S. Mint, under enormous pressure to meet demand, was reusing dies, running presses longer than intended, and sometimes letting imperfections slide. That's why 1962 is filled with hidden treasures, subtle variations, minting flaws, and mysterious toning that can transform a simple dime into a collector's masterpiece. Now, let's talk about that black shade. Many people see a dark, oxidized dime and think it's ruin. But seasoned collectors, they see potential. That black coloration could be the result of natural silver sulfide toning, from slowly as the metal reacted with sulfur in the air, paper, or fabric over 60 long years. Sometimes it happens in old coin rolls, sometimes in leather wallets, and sometimes just in humid air. The result, a deep, mirror-like black patina that's not damaged its character. Underneath that shade, your dime may still hold sharp details. Roosevelt's cheekbone, his hairline, the torch and olive branches on the reverse. In fine condition, those details remain visible, but softened by time. Yet this coin's real story isn't in its wear, it's in its rarities. One of the most remarkable varieties from 1962 is the 1962 double die obverse, where Roosevelt's eye lips or the date shows faint doubling under magnification. Another, more dramatic find, is the 1962D repunched mint mark, a tiny D punched twice at different angles, creating a subtle shadow that collectors hunt feverishly for. A third, even rarer anomaly, the 1962 transitional strike, a few dimes struck on leftover 1961 planchets that have a slightly different alloy mix, creating a darker hue naturel. Combine one of these rare errors with that dark natural patina, and you've got a coin that's no longer worth 10 cents, it's worth a fortune. Even an ordinary 1962 dime in fine condition sells for a few dollars just for its silver content. But once it carries that mysterious black toning and shows signs of error or doubling, the value skyrockets. Auction records have shown $8,000 to $15,000 for mild double dies, $50,000 to $100,000 for repunched mint mark examples in fine to uncirculated grades, and a jaw-dropping $450,000 or more for high-grade, perfectly struck specimens with deep natural toning, confirmed by professional grading services. Collectors love these coins not just for their beauty, but because each one feels like a relic from a vanishing age. When silver still meant something, when every dime had weight and worth, the black shade makes it even more alluring. It's like a silver coin wearing a coat of mystery, proof that it's lived a long, storied life. Maybe your dime sat untouched for decades in a forgotten jar. Maybe it lay hidden in a drawer since the 1960s, quietly gathering its dark, silky tone. Every mark, every line, every shadow tells part of its history. And for collectors, that's priceless. So if you ever find a 1962 dime with that inky black tone, don't clean it, don't polish it, because you might just be holding one of the most intriguing survivors of America's last full silver dime era. Remember, beauty isn't always bright. Sometimes, it hides in darkness, waiting for the right eyes to see its worth.